Hello, and welcome to Decisions Training video on AI in decisions. The goal of this video here today is to discuss how AI can be utilized within decisions to connect with various AI models to help increase how quickly different processes work, or whatever else you may want to try to use AI for. We're going to talk about a couple of the things that other companies have had success with AI and what they've learned, and the things you have to consider when you begin working with AI and decisions, as well as just show a couple of simple examples to kind of get your feet wet and get an idea of how it can work. So, the first things to consider are what are your challenges or what are the things that you are dealing with that AI could potentially help with? So, a lot of companies may have these kinds of thoughts. Things like you have labor intensive processes, high volumes of tasks that come in with a short amount of time. Maybe they're unpredictable, or maybe it's just a really busy time and you got a lot of things to get done. Things that require manual inputs that may be difficult to template. And so, sometimes these AI processes can be helpful in that. Things that are inefficient because you have high volumes of things, you got the manual processing, stuff that can take a long time and could be difficult to complete. There's inconsistencies as well. A lot of things when you utilize human error, that can obviously weigh heavily on a lot of processes and both slowing them down, but also open things up for having errors that could even result in a revenue loss, depending on the process and where those errors are occurring. And then also with backlogs of incidents and things happening, as you build up your processes, you may have a growing backlog that can become very difficult to manage. So there's a lot of things that you may come into issues with, and AI could potentially be a good pathway to help you in them. So then the goal is to make a plan from this. Now, obviously, this plan is going to be different every single time. This is by no means a tried and true method, but think about like where the largest, less complex processes or situations that you can work with at first to learn more and make sure that you're easing into it properly as well. Obviously, the goal if you have a lot of backlog would be to reduce that. So you want to consider things like that. How can you speed up your process without losing that much cost, kind of things, right? You also have to weigh in the cost of AI as opposed to how much you're, gaining or losing with the process by itself, things like that. And then also you have to work on aligning the AI responses with successful methods to get exactly what you're looking for. So consider all these things, right? So think about how exactly you want to use AI. What are you giving to the AI? What information do you want in your response? How should AI format that response, right? Sometimes, in most cases, you're going to want something to be consistent. So you have to make sure that the AI can be consistent and isn't going to give you things that you don't really understand or things that can become unpredictable. Um, what does decisions play in all this? Is decisions going to help you craft the data going into the AI? Is decisions going to then, you know, parse out everything that comes out of the AI? How exactly are you utilizing that as well? Because not only would you be using decisions to connect with the AI, but you may be doing everything before and after it as well. So, when we're considering how AI works and how you're going to connect things to AI, you're going to be dealing with creating a lot of prompts. And so, having a prompt dashboard that you can use to help manage all the prompts that you want to send through AI is something that's going to be pretty important. Now, in version 9, we do have the AI models that you could use to connect with different things, the AI Common module, the AI, Gemini, OpenAI, all the different modules that we have available. And there's one dashboard that's already there for us that we can use to help manage these prompts. But you could also create your own if you want to help manage it in different ways or change some of the actions and abilities that you have on the dashboard. But it's definitely a place that you can manage and adjust all your prompts can be very important. A couple of things, and we'll talk a little bit more about how they work as well, is to now consider how exactly are you going to set up these prompts. Um, a lot of times, thinking about single individual questions as opposed to lumping large groups of questions may work better. If you provide these singular questions to the AI model, they quite often will help in making sure that you're getting the most accurate and useful information. So decisions can be used to kind of trim down what is sent to AI so it knows what it should be doing and what it should be responding to. Um, but you also still technically have to weigh all those things in with those individual questions in with, how often do you want to be reaching out to the AI to get things. So when you're setting up the prompts and decisions, you'll be able to provide all the different details and instructions to the AI, and then you'll want to also expect a simple response. Um, since you want to keep that response consistent and hopefully preferably simple, as opposed to having a long complex response in most cases, then it may be useful to have a goal and to tell it exactly what is it it's expecting. So throughout this process, I'll be referencing just an example of maybe a veterinary clinic is using AI to get information back on various visits and things. And so let's say you have a simple prompt with the goal of just figuring out what is the animal and how long was the visit that for someone that brought their pet in, right? And you may even provide a specific JSON or something so that the AI actually responds exactly as you want it. So if you provide, the JSON format for this AI to say animal type is an example and the visit duration is this many minutes, then you can easily get that and hopefully the AI will be able to respond accordingly. From there, then you can allow the decisions to read the results and move the process forward with more new questions to keep that conversation going with the AI model and everything, so that the AI can keep that conversation up, use the previous data to continue building up and responding to things, and so on and so forth. You can also add examples to your prompts to help assist so that the AI understands how exactly it should be looking or what it should be looking for when it's trying to assess the data to give you your response. Another thing that you need to consider is telling AI what to do with the input information. So you have instructions that are detailing exactly what the AI should be doing, but also sometimes may be important to provide specifics on what not to do. Because quite often, if you don't tell AI not to do something or not to think of something or not to add something to your process, there's a chance that it will add that something to your process. So you may want to consider to include or not include different things. Maybe there's a certain aspect of the description that you don't want the AI to consider as it's trying to read that description or trying to output the results because something in the description is sometimes getting in the way or getting the AI confused. Or in this example, maybe you just simply want to say, don't return any other information. Maybe sometimes when you're sending the data out, it is not returning, or it's returning what you're asking, but maybe it's returning more. So different things like that you can consider. Also, providing an expected result with specific formatting can help also make sure that the data is actually being output exactly as you ask. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, providing a JSON format or something telling it exactly how you want it to respond can help make sure that the data is accurate, but also help make sure that decisions afterwards can go ahead and take that data and do more with it. And if it's unpredictable how it's formatted, then decisions will have more difficulty properly utilizing that information. Now, like I mentioned before, prompts often will work best when they're singular or a very small grouping of questions as opposed to being long, complex things that, add a lot of different questions. And we've had situations with customers that had been using AI that kind of found this to be true. And as AI gets more and more powerful, it's definitely possible that we have the ability to have one prompt have a lot more in it. But at least at the moment, and sometimes even just to be safe and make sure that you're getting exactly what you want, it tends to be useful to make sure that you're keeping things separated to help maintain that accuracy and make sure that you're not getting things that are a little confusing. So if you have a situation that needs multiple questions or requires multiple questions or multiple prompts, break them apart. The have singular prompts that allow you to do that, and you tend to get more accuracy. Here's an example of I've had three different prompts that I was kind of messing around with pets going through this, and I combined all of them into one more detailed prompt to get all the data in one final result. And now this was a very simple example, so it definitely wasn't too difficult to read. But there was even just in simply this, when they were all combined together, the total cost ended up actually being inaccurate. So if you do your math here and look at the numbers actually don't correspond to the actual data that was provided. Um, in the examples here. And so while the justification adds up to give us the 190 that we got, it actually doesn't match with what the initial input was. This actually should be adding up to 220 with different values here. And so even just having a kind of not overly complex example with a lot of questions in here led to the AI resulting in some inaccurate data that wasn't exactly what we were looking for. But when that information was spread out across three separate prompts, all of the separate pieces of information. One gave the type and the duration, one gave the information from tasks to justification and all of that, and then one was just giving the detailed tasks. And all of that information was spot on when they were singular. But when they're in the group, there tend to be some inaccuracies. So you may have to, you may want to consider that when you're utilizing AI as well. Now, to demonstrate a little bit about the process, I actually have a little breakdown of just, again, my simple example with the pets process and how that took a little while to even just get this to show what we're looking for. And I kind of made an example to show the process of trial and error in getting your prompts, inputs, and outputs to show what we're looking for, because it's going to take a lot to try something, get the output, make a change, get another output, make a change, get another output. Obviously, thinking through these things and making sure that everything is pretty solid the first run around, it will definitely help. I purposely kind of made this very broad at first just to demonstrate how you could slowly kind of build up the process. But we'll kind of take a look at how this kind of slowly evolved into something that was successful and accurate. So here, I just provided information that detailed what happened at a vet visit, as well as a list of the costs of different things that could happen at the vet visit potentially. And so the AI was reading this, and according to that, there was the copay that it had to pay. There were two shots given for $70 each, and antibiotics. And so AI output this, and I just told it to output the results, and it gave a full breakdown with all this information. Now, if I'm trying to use decisions to take that data and do something with it, it might be a lot more difficult to try to remove all the unnecessary information, the information that decisions doesn't want, in order to continue this process automatically. So this is way too much. So I wanted to make sure that I only got the final results. I don't really need the full breakdown. So then I changed the prompt a little bit, saying, hey, let's ask for just the final result. And so then I asked for that, and it gave me this, which is a completely different number. It is not even the same number, and it is not the number that it is supposed to be. It was inaccurate. So just outputting that total, I wasn't even getting exactly what I was looking for. So I knew that I needed to change my prompt a little bit more. So I asked AI to provide a list of items because I was saying, well, if they thought that it was 240, maybe there was a confusion on the items. So I wanted to also provide a list of the items and to see what those kinds of things were. And so I did that. And getting the list of items, I first of all got a different total cost, but I was also missing an item that was supposed to be charged with the total, which was that copay. And if it had the copay, it would be the right thing. So I made sure to add that information as well. Make sure that it includes the copay and include that in the tasks and the calculation. And it did that exact thing and gave that 240 again. Another not accurate value. So again, adding some more information and actually asking for a justification. So having the AI provide a justification or a reasoning for how it got to that cost. And as soon as that justification was added, the numbers actually lined up and were accurate, providing that exact total cost that I was looking for. But also, I was output in a JSON format, so it's a little bit easier now to separate that data out because I could have a data structure in decisions. Then I can only grab the total cost if I wanted. If I wanted, I could also use the task list or those justifications to do something with as well. But at least now the AI was giving me accurate results, and I was able to work through that. Now, again, this is a very simple process. So in a real use case, your information is probably going to be a lot deeper, and it will probably take a lot more trial and error just to get the data exactly like you're looking for. But that's just an example to kind of give you an idea of what it's like. Now, another thing that a lot of people have utilized, especially when utilizing AI within decisions, is to review the conversation, right? Especially in the early stages of the process when you're trying to make sure that AI is giving you exactly what you want. You don't want to just let it have free reign and let that affect everything in your process, right? So, some kind of review is something that could be very important. Having a process that allows a user to go in and review what the AI prompt was and what their response was so that you can get context on what the AI actually read, especially if you provide the justification and something like that. So you add that information there, you can get more information, and you can kind of use that to help understand what happened. Um, we have a lot of users have also there a few examples. that we've had where people would actually add, not only would they have the response that they wanted specifically, but they would also have the AI provide a description for justification, a little bit more complex than the justification from the my previous example. That was just simply adding some things up. But adding AI a description of just their justification for why they chose or why they responded in the way that they did, as well as a confidence level, that can be very important as well. So if you have AI provide a confidence level, maybe it was having trouble reading something and its confidence level was at 70, or it was pretty cut and dry, pretty clear, and its confidence level is 90, 95, right? So it really helps to kind of get an understanding. And you can even make that, if there's a confidence level, automatically prevent the process from going anywhere else and require a manager, like a manual review or something, without even letting anything else happen if that confidence level is too low. But regardless, having some kind of review can allow users to read the AI prompt, maybe see if there's some confusion or some vagueness, right? Vagueness is often the enemy in AI. If you're not pretty clear and to the point, then it makes it more likely for AI to get confused or just messed up or just add its own things, right? So being able to review that can allow users to maybe make some changes on their own and then go back to the prompt and make adjustments to make that prompt more clear to help avoid those kinds of things. And then move through the process. But then this allows us to say that a majority of that rote kind of manual work can be done by the AI, so then human workers can go and complete their part of the process much faster. Another thing that may be useful is to also build out an AI success tracking dashboard. Build some kind of dashboard in Decisions, or a way to actually track, how did the AI work? How has the AI been successful? Has it been accurate? You can use this to look through all of the data that AI has created, and then also see all the data that has been manually created and compare those things, right? So if you have the review process that allows a user to review the process and maybe make some changes, then you can have this this process here where now anyone can go back and take a look and see, this is what AI had, this is what the user had that manually edited things, made some changes. And then you could use that to, again, boost your process or help understand, maybe even catch instances that the AI is just not going to be able to do. So you have to feed those into a process manually and stuff like that. So build out some process that tracks the IDs and values of things, who created it, if someone manually created it, find the differences. You can see the difference of $592 versus 591.79, right? AI didn't get the number exactly right, so that needed to be adjusted a little bit to make sure that it was accurate. Things like that. So being able to review that and track it better can help make the prompts better, as well as make sure that you're not just letting things go through and get missed, when there's something that's important. So now we're going to take a look at Decisions and just take a look at how some of the AI functionality can work, so you just have an idea of how to build with it if you're looking to play around with it or learn a little bit more. So the first thing that you'll need to do in order to utilize AI within your Decisions flows is to actually get the modules and make sure that you have the various AI modules that you want to use downloaded so that you can add them to a project in version 9. So to access those, if you're not familiar, if you go to System and Administration under Features, you'll find all of our modules that can be downloaded within Decisions. And then we are going to find our various AI modules. So you can see across the top here, I actually have most of them already downloaded or installed on my instance. But if you don't have anything installed, you'll just scroll down and you'll be able to find the AI modules, in here. It's all alphabetical, so it should be pretty easy to find. You can see I have AI Google Vertex I have not installed, so I can find that there. But if you want to include it, you can go ahead and install it and continue through the process, and it'll install the module for you. In version 9, we have the AI Common module, which is a general module that can actually be utilized on all of the AI modules. So if you download the one module that you plan on using, like let's say you download Google Gemini, right? It's dependent on the AI Common module, so it will also install that module for you. But you'll download the modules that you're interested in. You can download many, just one, whatever you plan on using. Some people might actually utilize multiple AI models when they're building. So you may actually want to utilize multiple, or maybe there's just one that you plan on using. You can just use that one. Once you have the model added, you'll also need to configure settings to actually utilize the API key. Um, so these models are great because they will add steps and decisions that allows you to automatically start sending prompts for chat completions to the AI. It'll also help set up the integration stuff for you immediately, so you don't have to go through and go out of your way to create that information. But you will still need the API keys in order to access them, and I'm not going to open any right now because I don't want to obviously reveal the keys that I have typed in there, and they don't think they're hidden when I first open it. But let's say you're using Google Gemini and I open up my settings here. There will be an empty box where you can paste the API key. So from whatever API model you're using, you'll have to make sure that you get the keys, and you'll find their settings in here somewhere that you can go ahead and add those. And that will be necessary in order to use. If you try to use something you don't have that key connected, then obviously it will not work. So make sure that you do that as well. So you install the models, go to settings, and make sure that you have the keys added, where necessary. Then you'll have your projects, and in version 9, in order to actually utilize a module in on any project, we have to first add dependencies. So under configuration, there's a section for dependencies, and then you can manage to add any dependencies for projects, but modules is what we're looking for here. And so this is where I would add all of my AI modules. So if I don't have anything selected here, then I would have to go and select them. But I simply want to make sure that I have the correct AI models that I'm trying to utilize in my process, add it as dependencies, hit confirm, and then that will open those up. And so you can see I've got all of the AI models that I've installed here available in dependencies. Once that is completed, then you'll be able to actually start working with and using the AI models. So under integrations, there's an AI tab. This will not be there if you have not added any modules as a dependency yet. But if you do, there is a folder for prompts, and this is the default prompt dashboard. It's a pretty simple dashboard, shows all the prompts that you've created. You can add prompts from the top up here, tracks a little bit of information, who last saved them and created them and things like that. You can right click to edit and make changes to these things. You can add brand new prompts by clicking on add prompt up at the top, and then you can go ahead and start preparing the prompts that you want to use. So the name is just the name that it's going to appear, and you can add a description. Prompt is obviously the prompt that you're going to be feeding to the AI. So this is where you can type up and prepare everything that you want to use in your process to actually send through something. So you type in your information that you want to feed to the AI. You can also include variables. So it does not have to be all static. You can, everything you type in here will be static, but what we can do is we actually have variables. You can add some here, and you can also do it in a flow, which I'll show shortly. But you can add variables, and the variables will do a find and replace kind of functionality here. So then you can, type in something with information in some kind of way so that you can search for that specific item and replace it with the information you want. So if I do that here, I can put more details as my kind of variable in here with the information that I want, continue typing and completing the rest of my prompt with whatever information I need here. And then I can add a variable to say, hey, I want this to be more details exactly like that, and replace it with more information, right? And then that will actually allow this to then read this information and replace the data with the data here with whatever words I add here, right? Now, all of this is static, but we do have the ability to do this in the flow as well, so we can make it dynamic, which I'm sure is what most use cases are going to want to use anyway to make sure that the AI is actually getting the data. Once we have that, you can save it, and then you'll get your prompt down here. So here's the four prompts that I had kind of been showing on the presentation a little bit. And so we can use these just as reference to kind of show some of the things that can be done in decisions. So if I go here, and I'll open up one of these prompts so I can show you. So we got the pet assessment prompt. Now this is just a simple read the description, determine if it's an animal, if the animal is a dog, cat, or bird, right? And then calculate the length of the visit. So we've got a variable for the visit description to try to search for that variable and output the correct variable I'm looking for, and then information about how I want it to output, right? This is the same thing that was on the screenshot on the presentation. You could simply add the data here if you would like. If I just put a random description here, I could easily do that, and I can have information sitting here. If I want it to be static, you could easily do that in this way. But once we have that, now that's our prompt. And what we can do now is we can go to a flow to then actually build out how this prompt will work. So let's go down to a flow. I've got a folder here with the flows already, and I've already started building this out. But now let's say we start to build out our flow and we want to go ahead and add the information. So I've already got the step here, but I'll show you where to access the steps as well. So as long as you have the AI model installed and as a dependency on your project, you'll have an AI tab here if you look at all the steps. And under the AI tab, you'll see all the different AI models that you have modules for downloaded, as well as common. And within these, you can get a bunch of other things that you could use. Almost all of them will have the chat completion and other things as well. So that's really the main thing we focus on here. So here in the AI Common module, we have chat completion step, and you'll see a number of settings over here. So you can set a default provider so that you can actually have whatever your main default provider is. But then on the step itself, you can, if you don't use anything, it's going to automatically try to go to the default one. If you have that set to be Google Gemini or OpenAI or whatever, it's going to try to reach out to that. But you can have it override it if you want. And you can either directly choose, right, statically, or you can check this box to say get provider from flow, and it'll add a provider input to the step saying, okay, now if you provide the input here, then I can let this be dynamic. So maybe I have a flow that actually has various values that will tell chat completion step from the AI Common module a different AI model to reach out to. If you're in a use case that's going to use multiple AI models, you're feeding different things to different AI models because you're expecting different results or something. Or maybe you're feeding it to all of them to see which one gives the most accurate results, whatever that may be. Um, you can do the same thing for the model, right? Selecting specifically which model you're trying to utilize. It'll be also based on the provider that you have selected. So I don't see anything right now, but let's just make this a static Google Gemini just for being able to demonstrate here. So then it'll provide it, allow me to see the data from all the different, Google Gemini models here, or whichever one applies to me. So if I grab one there, I could also get the model from the flow if I want to get that information from the flow, if that can be dynamic. And then the prompt. The prompt is just a string field that I can type in here. But if I don't want to type it statically here, I can hit select prompt. I can get the prompt from a flow. If I have a step in my process that's going to be giving me my prompt as a string, I can actually just get that data from here. So maybe I've got, a string thing that's building up my string here with my prompt. I can easily get it from here, or I can do select prompt and I can select a prompt from my integrations AI prompts folder that has the prompts that I was building on that dashboard. So that allows me to use that pet assessment one, for example, the one that I just showed. We also have variables, so the ability to override the variables, right? So I provided a variable in my example, and now I said I want to override that variable if I want. I can either use the one that I built on the prompt level, or I could override that. And this is where you can make those variables be used with, a more dynamic kind of option. So let's go back to this, the one that I've kind of already set up, and I can show what I'm using here. Let's say I have my model selected, I have my prompt. My prompt is going to be that pet assessment. If I want to override the variables to grab something that I have, right, I've got a string over here that's building up that specific variable. And then if I put in the specific one that I want there, I can put that here. This is just a create data step to set that data. And then I can build the array because the could be a list of variables, right? It may just be one variable, maybe a list of them. But let's say if it's a list of variables, and then if I build data on it, I can easily just say, okay, with this list that I have, here's the find and replace part of those things. So then I can say, hey, find my visit description with this text and replace it with the string from that previous step. right? And then it'll automatically do that for me. So then it can run through my process and give me my results. So if I run it, I can go ahead and I can read this data, and there's find and replace and what it replaced. And then the AI provided me with a JSON value that contained the information saying, hey, this is a bird with 15-minute vet visit duration, right? Nice and simple way to get that data, and I can easily check it and then obviously go through, check it, and then make some adjustments, right? Another quick and easy tip as well, if you're really trying to practice and get used to the different things you can create, just have another tab open with the prompt, your prompt dashboard open, right? And so then I can easily test this, see what the result is, hop over to my other prompt and make some changes. If you're making simple changes, if you got to make a lot of big changes, that might be a little bit longer of a process than just flipping to another tab and checking it. But that's basically how the process works. You can easily change these things. Obviously, I can add more and more variables here. I just have one that I'm adjusting, but I can easily hit the plus and add another one, build data on this, and I can find a different variable that's in my process, right? I can have a lot of different variables that I want to adjust and change in my process. I can easily build those processes out and do that with more of them, to add these different descriptions and things so that the prompts are giving me the information that I want. And then, like I mentioned before, maybe use decisions to build up your strings, to build up your inputs for these prompts. And then you can also use decisions to then take that data in and parse it out or use it in whatever ways after that prompt as well. So decisions can do quite a bit with that data, especially if you work on getting your AI to be able to consistently take in and output data with things. Now, I wanted to bring up one more thing that could be useful, and it is really dependent on the user and the use case plan. But something that could be helpful and that has been seen to be helpful for some users that do utilize AI is the use of process mining. Now, this is a great tool if you plan on using case entities or utilizing and tracking states in your process. Our process mining tool really helps to follow that process and track, the handovers and everything between all the different states. Which states are being used more, which states, are getting information to and from things more often, how long those states are taking, right? All that information can be found in process mining. So if you are using case entities, then this might apply. Um, the process mining is very useful because it helps you to find various bottlenecks and why these bottlenecks might be happening. And especially if you have a process that is very manual and or has a lot of manual steps, you may actually be able to use this to find certain states and the processes under a state where AI could maybe be useful. It's not guaranteed to be, but it just may be something to think about. So if you do utilize process mining and are able to track that data, you could look at it and say, hey, this process has some pretty heavy usage. Maybe this is a place that I want to consider adding AI or making AI work better, right? If you have a state such as this one in the middle, then we can easily adjust and say, hey, this state has high load. There's a lot of things going in and out of it, right? You can see that there's these thick lines going in means that there's high volumes of items going in and out of this process. So because of that, that high load, the long time it takes to complete, the average tasks here are taking 20 hours to get completed, right? Maybe utilizing AI in the middle of this process can significantly reduce the time it takes to complete these records in my process here. And so that can become very useful in some cases. And maybe you're not using AI here and you want to add it. Maybe you're already using AI here and you want to increase it even more. Different things like that. But it may be the process mining may be helpful in helping you understand that and being able to get that a little bit better, right? So think about, let's say normally, right, John Smith, random person, is working on this task all the time, and it takes that person an average of 30 minutes. And then you look and your AI is able to do this process in 15 minutes and after a brief manual review of it, right? Then maybe it's worth using your credits with that AI to help this process get sped along, because ultimately you're cutting that time in half and it may become very useful. So, all in all, a number of key takeaways and things to think about. The prompts for the AI is really the longest and most difficult part. There's going to be a lot of trial and error to remove any vague language, that could be confusing the AI or leaving the AI to respond in ways that you don't like, and make sure that you're getting accurate responses. Prompts often tend to work a little bit better when they're broken apart. So having too much in one single prompt could tend to leave questions unanswered, or questions get missed, or just some general inaccuracies. So just some things to kind of consider and think about, especially when thinking about how much you want to pay for and spend on AI and things like that. Process mining tool, if you are using case entities and things that track states, could also be helpful, not only for your entire process, as a lot of people have found that like using process mining, but also in assisting where AI is most beneficial and very useful. And so that may also help to continue speeding your process along. And this will conclude our video talking about AI in decisions. We appreciate you watching this video and hope to see you again soon.